They didn't whisper it. They didn't soften it. They said it loudly, clearly, so the entire pack would hear. Useless. The word cracked through the great hall of Ravenmoor Pack like a whip. Torches flickered along the stone walls, their flames bending in the cold night air as if even the fire recoiled from what had just been spoken. Arya stood frozen at the center of the hall. She had been told her entire life to stay at the edges. Omegas did not belong in the middle of anything, not ceremonies, not councils, not judgment. But tonight, she had been dragged forward anyway, shoved into the open like something unwanted brought out only to be discarded. The moon assembly had gathered. Warriors lined the walls, arms crossed. Betas whispered among themselves. Elders sat on the raised stone seats, faces carved with years and authority. And at the very front, standing beneath the carved wolf crest, was Alpha King Rowan Blackclaw. He did not look angry. That was the worst part. His golden eyes were calm, cold, certain. Arya's hands trembled at her sides. Her thin blue-gray dress felt suddenly too light, too fragile against the chill seeping through the stone floor into her bare feet. She could feel every gaze pressing into her back, into the scar at her shoulder, into the space in her chest where her wolf should have been. She had never shifted. Not once. While other children ran through the forest in fur and fang, Arya had watched from the shadows, pretending she didn't care. While Omegas learned to soothe wolves with their presence, she had struggled even to feel her own. They said she was empty. Broken. Born wronged. Step forward, Rowan had ordered. She had obeyed. Because Omegas always did. Now she stood there, heart hammering so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it, waiting for a sentence she already knew was coming. Arya of Ravenmoor, Rowan said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. You have reached adulthood without manifesting a wolf. A murmur rippled through the crowd. She's 20. Still nothing. My pup shifted at 11. Arya swallowed hard. I gave you time, Rowan continued. More time than tradition allows. His gaze flicked briefly to the elders, then returned to her. And yet you remain exactly as you were born. Useless. The word echoed again in her mind before he even spoke it. You cannot hunt, Rowan said. You cannot fight, you cannot strengthen the pack bond. Each sentence landed like a stone, dropped into deep water. You consume resources, he went on. You take space, and in return you offer nothing. The laughter started slowly. Not cruel at first, awkward, uncomfortable, but when no one stopped it, it grew. A beta snorted openly. Another shook his head. Someone muttered, why was she even allowed to live this long? Arya's vision blurred. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms, grounding herself in pain so she wouldn't collapse. Crying here would only prove them right. Rowan raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. For years, he said, Ravenmoor has tolerated your existence out of misplaced mercy. Mercy. The word burned. Tonight, Rowan continued, that mercy ends. Arya's heart lurched. I hereby declare, he said formally, that Arya is no longer under the protection of Ravenmoor Pack. A gasp tore through the hall. Her breath caught painfully in her chest. You are publicly rejected, Rowan said, his voice unyielding. Not as a mate, but as a member of this pack. The world tilted. Rejected. Not even worth the bond. Effective immediately, Rowan finished, you are banished. The laughter returned. Louder. Sharper. Someone clapped. Arya staggered as if struck. Guards stepped forward, gripping her arms roughly, dragging her toward the massive iron doors at the back of the hall. Please, she whispered, the word tearing itself from her throat before she could stop it. Alpha, it's winter. Rowan didn't even look at her. That, he said coldly, is no longer my concern. The doors were thrown open. Night swallowed her whole. Snow rushed in, biting and wild, the forest beyond nothing but darkness and wind. The guards shoved her forward, letting her stumble into the storm. The doors slammed shut behind her. The sound echoed. Final. Arya stood there for a moment, stunned, snow soaking instantly into her hair and clothes. The warmth of the hall vanished, replaced by cold so sharp it stole her breath. She took one step, then another. Her legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow, breath ragged, chest aching with something worse than pain, humiliation. "I'm not useless," she whispered desperately to the empty night. "I'm not." The forest listened. Somewhere deep beyond the trees, something ancient stirred. And that night, the night they called her useless, the forest answered her cry. The snow swallowed her footprints almost immediately. Arya stumbled forward blindly, the wind tearing at her hair, her thin dress clinging to her skin like a second layer of ice. The Ravenmoor gates loomed behind her for only a few seconds before the storm erased them, turning stone and fire into nothing more than a memory. She was alone. The realization hit harder than the cold. Her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps, each inhale burning her lungs. Snow forced its way into her boots, numbing her toes until she could no longer feel where the ground ended and her body began. Useless. The word echoed with every step. She walked because stopping meant dying, and dying meant proving them right. Branches clawed at her arms as she pushed into the forest, bark tearing skin, pain blooming, and then fading beneath the greater ache in her chest. "I tried," she whispered hoarsely to the trees. "I really did." No one answered. The storm worsened. Snow fell heavier now, thick and relentless, turning the world into a white blur. Arya's legs trembled violently. Her muscles screamed, exhaustion dragging her downward with each step. She slipped. The ground vanished beneath her feet, and she tumbled down a shallow embankment, landing hard against frozen earth. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, leaving her gasping, chest heaving uselessly. She didn't get back up. For a long moment, she simply lay there, staring at the dark canopy above, snowflakes settling on her lashes. The cold crept deeper, settling into her bones like a promise. This was it. This was how useless things ended, quietly forgotten, erased. A sound tore from her throat, raw and broken. A sob. She hadn't meant to cry, she had sworn she wouldn't. But the pain was too much, years of silence, of watching others shift while she stood still, of being tolerated but never wanted. "They never even tried to know me," she cried aloud, voice cracking. "They never asked what I could do." Her fists clenched in the snow. "I wasn't empty," she whispered desperately. "I was just quiet." The forest listened. The wind shifted, changing direction abruptly. The storm's howl softened, just slightly, as if something vast had turned its attention toward her. Arya shuddered violently now, teeth chattering uncontrollably. Her thoughts slowed, drifting. Warmth felt like a distant memory. Her eyelids drooped. Then, a sound. Low, resonant, rolling through the trees like a vibration rather than a noise. A howl. Her eyes snapped open. Fear flared weakly, instinct screaming even as her body refused to move. Wolves meant death to a lone Omega, especially one unclaimed. Another howl answered the first. Closer. Arya struggled to sit up, panic lending her a surge of strength she didn't know she had. She dragged herself backward against a tree, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "Please," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "I don't have anything left." Dark shapes moved between the trees. Eyes blinked open in the darkness, gold, blue, pale silver, watching her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for pain. It didn't come. Footsteps crunched softly in the snow. The sound was deliberate, careful. Something large stepped into her line of sight, blocking the worst of the wind. Arya cracked one eye open. A massive wolf stood before her. Its fur was deep gray, streaked with white like frost caught mid-motion. Scars traced its flank, not the marks of a beaten creature, but of one that had survived countless battles. Its eyes were ancient, not cruel. Assessing. Another wolf emerged behind it. Then another. They formed a loose circle around her, far enough not to crowd her, close enough to shield her from the storm. Their bodies broke the wind, snow piling against their sides instead of hers. Arya's breath hitched. "They're not attacking," she whispered. The gray wolf lowered its head, sniffing gently at her hands, her hair, her chest. It lingered there, nose hovering where something beneath her skin pulsed faintly in response. A low rumble vibrated through its chest. Not a threat. A recognition. Warmth seeped back into Arya's limbs as the wolves settled around her, their combined body heat chasing away the cold inch by inch. Her shivering slowed. Confusion replaced fear. "Why," she whispered weakly, "I'm nothing." The forest answered. A subtle hum vibrated through the ground beneath her, spreading outward like roots pushing through soil. Arya gasped as something deep inside her stirred, not a wolf's howl, but something broader, older. The wolves lifted their heads simultaneously. They bowed. Arya's vision blurred as exhaustion finally claimed her. As darkness closed in, she felt one last thing, the steady presence of the wolves around her, guarding her, choosing her. And far back in Ravenmoor, beneath stone and firelight, the Alpha King Rowan Blacklaw felt a sudden, sharp ache in his chest. For the first time, his wolf stirred, uneasy. Arya woke to warmth. Not the false warmth of memory or dream, but something solid and undeniable. A steady heat pressed around her from every side, wrapping her in safety she had never known. For a long moment, she lay still, afraid to move, afraid the feeling would vanish if she acknowledged it. Her fingers twitched. They brushed against fur. Thick, coarse, alive. Her eyes flew open. She was lying in a hollow formed by massive wolves, their bodies arranged with deliberate care. Some lay curled tightly, others stretched along the edges, their backs to the wind, their heads lifted in watchful silence. Snow rested on their fur, but none touched her skin. They had made a nest. For her. Arya sucked in a sharp breath, panic flaring instinctively. She pushed herself up on trembling arms, heart racing. Immediately, a low rumble rolled through the circle. Not a growl. A warning. Stay. She froze. The gray wolf from the night before lifted its head. Up close, it was enormous, shoulders high, muscles moving beneath scarred fur, eyes a pale, piercing blue that seemed to look straight through her. It did not bare its teeth. It simply watched. Slowly, carefully, Arya lowered herself back into the warmth of the nest. The rumble faded. The wolves relaxed again, some closing their eyes, others remaining alert. "They protected me," she whispered. The realization hit her all at once, stealing her breath. They had not attacked her. They had not left her. They had chosen to stay through the night, through the storm, guarding something the pack had declared worthless. Her throat tightened painfully. For the first time since the gates had closed behind her, Arya allowed herself to cry not from fear, but from something dangerously close to relief. Time passed strangely in the forest. The storm eased, snow falling softer now, drifting lazily between branches. Arya's body ached as feeling returned to her fingers and toes, painful but alive. Hunger followed, a deep, gnawing ache that curled her stomach inward. She shifted slightly, wincing, and the wolves reacted instantly. The gray wolf stood and padded away into the trees. Two others followed without hesitation. Arya watched them go, uncertainty twisting inside her. A part of her feared they wouldn't return, that she had imagined everything, that the warmth would fade and the cold would reclaim her. But they came back. The wolves emerged from the trees carrying prey, a hare freshly caught. They dropped it carefully at the edge of the nest and stepped back. They waited. "You brought me food," Arya whispered, disbelief coloring every word. Her hands shook as she reached for it. She had never hunted, never taken a life. Ravenmoor's Omegas had always been given scraps after everyone else ate. "I don't know how," she murmured, voice breaking. "I've never." The gray wolf sat nearby, head tilted, eyes calm and patient. "Try." Arya swallowed and worked clumsily, apologizing under her breath to the animal, her fingers numb and uncertain. The wolves did not rush her, did not judge. When she finished, they dragged the remains away, leaving her alone to eat. Strength seeped back into her slowly. With it came awareness. The forest felt closer, not watching her like prey, listening to her like kin. As Arya finished eating, warmth bloomed beneath her skin. Not the cold burn of frostbite, but a gentle heat spreading outward from her chest, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She gasped softly, pressing her palms together. Faint light flickered beneath her skin. "Silver." Gone almost instantly, but enough. The wolves felt it. Every single one of them stiffened. Then, as one, they lowered their heads. Arya's heart slammed violently against her ribs. "No, no, don't do that," she whispered urgently. I'm not anything special." The gray wolf stepped forward and bowed deeper than the rest. "Reverence." Her breath hitched painfully. "I was called useless," she whispered, tears sliding freely down her cheeks. "They said I had nothing." The ground beneath her feet hummed. A low vibration rolled through the forest, subtle but unmistakable. Snow slid from branches overhead. The air thickened, charged with something ancient and patient. Inside her chest, something shifted. Not a wolf's howl. Something broader. Older. Arya cried out softly as energy surged through her veins, controlled, deliberate, responding to need rather than command. It did not overwhelm her. It recognized her. Silver light traced faint lines beneath her skin, glowing brighter now, outlining her hands, her arms, her heart. The wolves did not recoil. They stepped closer. A sudden sound cut through the moment. A sharp yelp. One of the younger wolves limped into the clearing, its leg twisted unnaturally, blood staining the snow beneath it. It whined softly, pain clouding its eyes. Arya's heart clenched. Without thinking, she knelt. "I can help," she whispered, hands hovering over the injury. I think I can." The warmth surged instantly. Silver light flowed from her palms, sinking into torn flesh and fractured bone. The wolf cried out once, then went still. Moments later it stood. Whole. The wolves erupted into howls, not of dominance, but of recognition and awe. Arya stared at her hands, breathless, tears streaming. "I'm not useless," she whispered, voice trembling with wonder. The forest answered with a deep, resonant hum. And far away, in the stone halls of Ravenmoor, Alpha King Rowan Blacklaw stiffened as a strange, unfamiliar unease settled in his chest. For the first time, doubt crept in. Rumors moved faster than storms. They slipped through the forest on paw and wing, carried by scouts who did not mean to speak and rogues who had not planned to kneel. By the second night after Arya's banishment, whispers had reached the outer patrols of Ravenmoor, fragments at first, unbelievable and half-formed. A girl who should have died in the snow. Wolves that would not leave her side. Silver light in the dark. Alpha King Rowan Blacklaw dismissed the first report with a curl of his lip. "Stories," he said, "fear makes fools of men." But the reports did not stop. A hunter returned pale-faced, claiming the Frostwood had gone silent, not empty, but occupied. Another swore he saw alphas bowing without challenge. A third came back shaking, whispering that the forest itself seemed to breathe. Rowan's wolf stirred uneasily for the first time in years. That troubled him more than the rumors. Meanwhile, Arya knelt among wolves as dawn broke pale and cold through the trees. The wounded wolf she had healed trotted ahead now, whole and strong, casting her glances filled with something like gratitude. She watched it go, heart thudding with a mix of wonder and fear. "I didn't know I could do that," she murmured. The gray wolf, the one who had first stepped into the storm, sat beside her. Its presence was steady, grounding. "You listened," the forest seemed to say. By midday, more wolves arrived. Not in challenge. In recognition. They came cautiously at first, lone rogues with scarred muzzles, small packs that had lost territory, alphas without followers. When they reached the clearing and saw Arya standing calm and unafraid among wolves, they stopped. And bowed. Arya panicked. "Please don't," she said, hands lifting helplessly. "I don't want this, I just wanted to live." The wolves did not argue. They settled. One by one, injured wolves were brought to her, limping, bleeding, broken by winter's cruelty. Each time Arya hesitated, fear knotting her stomach. Each time the silver warmth answered her call. She healed torn flesh, set shattered bones, quieted raging pain, and with each act the glow beneath her skin grew steadier, more controlled, not wild power but patient strength. The forest hummed approval. That night Rowan stood alone on Ravenmoor's walls, staring into the trees. Snow fell lightly, but the valley felt wrong, unbalanced, as if something vital had been removed. She was useless, he told himself. She offered nothing. His wolf did not respond. That silence frightened him. Elders approached him quietly, their expressions grave. "The old carvings," one said. "Have you seen them recently?" Rowan stiffened. "Legends." "Warnings," the elder corrected. "They speak of a quiet one, an omega the forest answers when packs forget humility." Rowan's chest tightened. "Arya," he whispered before he could stop himself. The elder did not deny it. At dawn, Rowan ordered a scouting party into the Frostwood. They returned before noon, shaken, pale, humbled. "There were wolves everywhere," one said hoarsely. "They let us leave." "Because they wanted you to," another added. Rowan felt the truth settle cold and heavy in his gut. He remembered Arya's eyes the night he called her useless, not angry, not defiant, just hurt. And still kind. Regret bloomed slowly, painfully. "I misjudged her," Rowan admitted quietly to the empty hall. His wolf stirred not in anger but in shame. Far away, beneath the forest canopy, Arya stood as the wolves howled under a rising moon. She lifted her face to the sky, silver light tracing her veins, and whispered the words she had never been allowed to say before. "I am here." The forest answered, and Rowan Blacklaw finally understood that by banishing what he did not understand, he had awakened something far greater than his rule. Rowan Blacklaw entered the Frostwood alone. No guards followed him. No banners marked his path. He left Ravenmoor before dawn, the sky still heavy with night, snow crunching beneath his boots with every step. For the first time since he had taken the Alpha mantle, he did not feel like a king. He felt like a man walking toward judgment. The forest changed the moment he crossed the boundary. The wind fell silent, the birds stilled. Even the crunch of snow beneath his feet seemed muted, as if the land itself watched and waited. Rowan slowed instinctively, his wolf pacing uneasily beneath his skin. "This is not your territory," the instinct warned. He smelled them before he saw them. Wolves. Many of them. Not the scattered scent of rogues or the sharp edge of challengers, but a unified presence, layered and deep, woven together like threads in a tapestry. The deeper Rowan walked, the heavier it became, pressing against his chest until breathing felt like effort. Then he stepped into the clearing. And stopped. Wolves filled it. They stood shoulder to shoulder, bodies forming an unbroken circle. Alphas, betas, rogues, sizes, and colors blending into a living wall of fur and muscle. Their eyes glowed in the half-light, fixed on him with calm certainty. No snarls. No challenge. Just refusal. Rowan took one step forward. The wolves moved as one, tightening the circle. He stopped. Slowly, deliberately, Rowan dropped to one knee in the snow. The wolves did not move. "I came to speak," he said hoarsely, "not to command." A ripple passed through the pack. Then Arya stepped forward. She emerged from the wolves as if the forest itself parted for her. Her hair hung loose over her shoulders, snow melting where it touched her skin. Silver light pulsed faintly beneath her veins, steady and controlled. She looked calm. Not frightened. Not broken. Rowan's chest tightened painfully. "You called me useless," Arya said quietly. The words struck harder than a blade. "Yes," Rowan replied, "and I was wrong." The wolves shifted, watching closely. "You stripped me of protection," she continued. "You sent me into the storm knowing I would die." Rowan bowed his head. "Yes." Silence pressed in, heavy as snowfall. "I am not here to beg," Rowan said finally, "nor to reclaim what I threw away. I came to acknowledge the truth." He lifted his gaze to meet hers. "The forest chose you," he said, "and I did not." Arya studied him for a long moment. "The wolves did not choose me because I am strong," she said softly. "They chose me because I listened." Silver light brightened briefly beneath her skin. "You called me useless," she went on, "but I was never empty, I was quiet." The wolves bowed. Rowan's wolf whimpered inside him. "I will not return to Ravenmoor," Arya said, "and I will not belong to any pack that measures worth by volume." Rowan lowered himself fully, pressing his forehead to the snow. "Then I release you," he whispered, "from Ravenmoor, from me." Arya nodded once. Behind her, the wolves closed ranks. Rowan rose slowly, understanding settling deep in his bones. He had not lost an Omega. He had lost the future. Rowan Blacklaw returned to Ravenmoor at twilight. The gates opened at his approach, iron groaning softly as if reluctant to admit him back inside. Torches flared to life along the walls, their flames bending in the wind, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Wolves gathered silently, sensing the weight he carried back with him. He did not walk as a victor. He walked as a bearer of truth. The pack parted instinctively, eyes following him with confusion, fear, and something new, uncertainty. Rowan climbed the stone steps to the central platform where judgments were delivered, where he had once called an Omega useless without hesitation. "Summon everyone," he said quietly. Within the hour, Ravenmoor assembled. Elders took their seats. Warriors lined the walls. Betas clustered together, whispering. Omegas stood at the edges, just as Arya once had, watching with guarded expressions. Rowan stood before them unarmed. "I banished Arya of Ravenmoor," he began, his voice steady but stripped of authority. "I called her useless." A murmur rippled through the hall. "I was wrong." The words landed like thunder. Rowan continued, forcing himself not to look away. She survived the storm, she survived the frostwood, and she did not do it by strength of fang or claw. He lifted his gaze, golden eyes sharp with truth. She did it because the forest answered her. Gasps spread through the crowd. "She heals," Rowan said. "Wolves bow to her, not because she commands, but because they trust." An elder rose slowly. "The quiet one," she whispered, "the one from the old warnings." Rowan nodded, yes. Fear crept into the hall. "I stripped her of protection," Rowan said, "and in doing so I nearly doomed this pack." Silence pressed heavy. From beyond the walls, a low howl rolled through the valley. Not a challenge. A reminder. Rowan dropped to one knee before his pack. "I failed," he said simply. And the world began to change. The howls did not fade with the night. They deepened. They rolled through the valley in layered waves, echoing off stone and mountain, vibrating through bone and blood alike. Ravenmoor had always known the sound of wolves, territorial warnings, battle cries, calls of grief. But this was something else entirely. This was not noise. This was a summons. Guards rushed to the parapets, torches trembling in their hands as they peered into the darkness beyond the gates. At first, they saw nothing but snow-laden trees and shifting shadows. Then, one by one, points of light blinked open in the forest. Eyes. Gold and silver, pale blue. Dozens. Then hundreds. Wolves emerged from between the trees, moving with deliberate calm. They did not snarl. They did not charge. They took positions along the edge of the clearing, forming a living horizon of fur and muscle. Inside the walls, panic rippled. "Rogues," someone whispered. "No," another replied shakily. "They're organized." "I've never seen anything like this." Rowan Blacklaw stood at the front of the courtyard, unmoving. He felt her before he saw her. The air shifted, not violently, but decisively, as if the forest itself had taken a breath and released it all at once. The wolves parted near the center of the gathering, opening a clear path. Arya stepped forward. She walked barefoot across the snow, yet left no mark behind. The cold did not cling to her skin. Silver light flowed faintly beneath her veins, illuminating her softly, like moonlight given form. She did not carry weapons. She did not need them. The wolves bowed as she passed. Alphas lowered their heads. Rogues flattened their ears. Even the largest beasts stepped aside instinctively, acknowledging something they did not need explained. On the walls, Ravenmoor stared in stunned silence. "She's real," someone breathed. "The forest's answer." Arya stopped just beyond the gates. The wolves halted behind her, forming a silent wall that stretched as far as the eye could see. Rowan took a slow step forward. The gates creaked open at his silent command. Arya entered Ravenmoor alone. The pack fell to its knees without instruction. Not from fear. From recognition. "I did not come to take your lands," Arya said calmly, her voice carrying through the courtyard with ease. "I did not come to claim your throne. Her eyes swept the crowd, elders, warriors, omegas, and none could meet her gaze. I was called useless here, she continued, cast out to die. Shame rippled visibly through the pack. But the forest listened when you did not, Arya said, and it answered. Silver light flared brighter beneath her skin. Outside the walls, the wolves howled as one. Rowan stepped forward and dropped to one knee before her. I was wrong, he said, and I will never forget it. Arya looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned back toward the gates. I will not rule Ravenmoor, she said, but I will not be silent again. She walked back toward the forest. The wolves followed, and Ravenmoor understood that the night they called her useless, they had awakened something far greater than their authority. They never used the word useless again. Not in Ravenmoor, not anywhere the story reached. The night Arya walked back into the forest became a dividing line in time, a before and an after. Wolves remembered it in their bones. Packs spoke of it in lowered voices, as if saying her name too loudly might summon the forest itself. They told the story to their pups. How an omega without a howl was cast out into winter. How laughter followed her into the snow. How the forest listened when the pack did not. They said the trees leaned closer when she cried, that the roots shifted beneath her blood, that the ancient pact, the one wolves had forgotten, stirred awake at her pain. Arya never returned to Ravenmoor to rule. She didn't need to. She built no throne, raised no banners, claimed no territory. Her court was wherever the forest reached, wherever wolves needed healing, wherever silence was mistaken for weakness. She walked among them barefoot, silver-veined and calm, wolves at her side. Injured rogues limped toward her without fear. Broken packs found peace near her presence. Battles ended before they began, not because she commanded, but because she reminded them of what they were meant to protect. They began to call her names. The quiet Luna. The forest's voice. The one who was answered. Arya accepted none of them. She accepted only the wolves. As seasons passed, Ravenmoor changed. Rowan Blacklaw ruled differently. He listened more than he spoke. He watched the omegas he once ignored, seeing strength where he had once seen silence. Each winter, when the snow fell thickest, he stood at the gates and bowed his head toward the frostwood, not in penance, but in respect. He never laughed again at what he did not understand. And sometimes, when the moon hung low and silver, wolves would howl, not in warning, not in rage, but in remembrance. They remembered the night a girl was called useless, and the night the forest answered her cry. Because the truth endured long after crowns faded, and names were forgotten. Power does not always roar. Sometimes it listens, and when it does, the world answers.